DC just released 3 brand new posters for Supergirl. At first glance, that sounds like standard movie marketing. New posters, new artwork, nothing unusual. But if you look a little closer, these posters reveal something much bigger. They tell us how DC Studios is positioning Supergirl. They hint at the scale of the movie. They show where Kara Zor-El fits into the new DC universe. And they might reveal why James Gunn is betting so heavily on this character moving forward. Because make no mistake, this is not just another superhero movie. This could be one of the most important projects in DC's entire reboot. Let's break it down. Ever since Superman launched the new DC universe, fans have been asking one question. What's next? Not just the next movie, the next major piece of the universe. The next character that DC wants audiences to invest in. And based on everything we've seen so far, the answer appears to be Supergirl. DC recently unveiled 3 new promotional posters tied to the film's upcoming SCREENX release. Now, normally, I wouldn't make an entire video about movie posters. But these aren't really about posters. They're about strategy. And when you connect these images to everything we've learned over the past year, a much bigger picture starts to emerge. Why these posters matter. The first thing worth mentioning is the timing. Movies usually ramp up marketing when studios become confident they have something audiences will respond to. And right now, DC is pushing Supergirl hard. New posters, new footage, convention appearances, interviews, special format promotions. Everything is accelerating. That tells us Warner Brothers and DC Studios see this movie as a major event. Not a side story, not a filler project, a key chapter. And that's important because Supergirl wasn't always viewed this way. For years, Kara Zor-El lived in Superman's shadow. Even in comics, television, and animation, she was often treated as a supporting character. Now she's getting an entire cosmic adventure that could redefine her place in the DC universe. The SCREENX factor. Let's talk about SCREENX for a moment. A lot of people see that logo and move on, but it's actually pretty interesting. SCREENX expands scenes beyond the main movie screen onto the walls of the theater. Instead of looking straight ahead, audiences get a 270-degree experience. It's typically reserved for movies with massive visual spectacle. Think giant action sequences, space battles, large fantasy environments, moments designed to feel bigger than a traditional screen. And the fact that DC is highlighting Supergirl with this format tells us something. This movie isn't staying on Earth. It's going big, very big. In fact, everything we've heard about the project points toward a full-scale space opera, not unlike what Guardians of the Galaxy did for Marvel. Except this story appears to have a much more serious edge. The story most people aren't talking about. One of the smartest decisions DC made was choosing the source material. The movie draws heavy inspiration from the acclaimed comic series Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And if you've never read it, here's the short version. This isn't a story about saving the world. It's a story about loss, revenge, justice, and what happens when someone with godlike power is forced to confront real pain. The movie follows Kara and a young girl named Ruthie. Together, they travel across the galaxy, hunting the man responsible for murdering Ruthie's father. That's already a much different setup than most superhero films. There's no alien invasion. No giant skybeam, no world-ending threat, at least not on the surface. Instead, the story focuses on character. And honestly, that's probably exactly what DC needs right now. One of the most interesting things James Gunn has said about Supergirl is that she experienced Krypton very differently than Superman. Clark Kent arrived on Earth as a baby. He grew up with loving parents. He had stability. He had guidance. Kara didn't. According to DC's own descriptions, she witnessed unimaginable destruction before arriving on Earth. That trauma shapes who she becomes, and it creates a completely different hero. That's why this version of Supergirl feels so important. She's not simply female Superman. She's her own character, her own perspective, her own journey. And if the film captures that properly, it could give DC something they've been missing for years. A genuinely unique lead hero. Milly Alcock has a huge challenge. Now let's talk about the casting. Milly Alcock has already built a strong reputation thanks to House of the Dragon. But playing Supergirl is a completely different challenge. This isn't just another fantasy role. This is one of the most recognizable characters in comic book history, and expectations are extremely high. The good news is that early reactions from industry events and promotional appearances have been encouraging. Everything we've seen suggests she understands that Kara is more complicated than many people realize. Strong but damaged. Confident but isolated. Powerful but still searching for purpose. Those layers are exactly what made the comic work, and they'll be essential if the movie wants to stand out. The Jason Momoa wildcard. There's another reason fans are paying close attention to this film. Jason Momoa, after years of playing Aquaman, he's entering the new DC universe as Lobo. And honestly, that might be one of the most perfect comic book castings ever. Lobo is loud, chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow hilarious and dangerous at the same time. Everything about Momoa's personality feels naturally aligned with the character, which means his debut could become one of the movie's biggest talking points, especially if DC plans to use Lobo in future projects. Because let's be honest, you don't cast Jason Momoa as Lobo just for a brief appearance. You cast him because you have bigger plans. The bigger DCU picture. This is where things get really interesting. Many people still think DC is simply making standalone movies, but that's not what's happening. They're building a connected universe. And Supergirl sits right in the middle of that strategy. She already appeared alongside Superman. She's expected to remain important moving forward. And upcoming DC projects continue expanding the world around these characters. Think about it. Superman establishes hope. Supergirl explores trauma and justice. Future films can build on both perspectives. That creates a universe with much more emotional range. And honestly, that's something superhero franchises often struggle with. The real test for DC. Here's the reality. Supergirl carries a lot of pressure. Not because it needs to break box office records. Not because it needs to outperform every superhero movie ever made. But because it needs to prove that DC's reboot has depth. One successful Superman movie is a good start. A successful Supergirl movie would show that the universe can support multiple heroes, multiple tones, multiple stories. That's the difference between a hit movie and a sustainable franchise. And that's why executives are watching this project so closely. Final thoughts. So when you see these new Supergirl posters, don't just see marketing. See what they represent. A new lead hero. A major expansion of the DC universe. A cosmic story unlike anything we've seen from DC in years. And potentially the beginning of a completely different future for Kara Zor-El. The posters themselves look great. The SCREENX presentation suggests massive visual ambition. The cast is stacked. The source material is respected. And the creative team seems committed to delivering something that feels distinct from traditional superhero films. Now, the only question left is whether the movie can deliver on that promise. Because if it does, Supergirl may end up being far more important to DC's future than anyone expected. And if that happens, these posters might be remembered as the moment the next era of the DC universe truly began. What do you think? Will Supergirl become DC's next breakout hero? Or is the pressure simply too high? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories shaping the future of movies, comics, and entertainment. Thanks for watching.